Hello everyone. This tutorial I'm gonna go into the basics of creating your fashion illustration. This is where you would start to get like your basic form, your basic figure, and I'm just looking at the techniques you want to think about that gets you there, right? So to start, you will want to begin with a sense of the length of the body, right? In most places, they would use 9.5 heads, 9 heads, 10 heads, that kind of thing. And it's longer than what would have been done classically for drawing. In fashion, you're thinking about elongating the form, so you have a way to present the garments. All right. So I've already done the measurements here, which indicate the 9 heads down the body. And I've also indicated some areas that would highlight certain measurements that we want to pay attention to whilst we're working. So at about 1.5 head, you have your shoulders. At about the 3rd head, you have your waist. And then you have the hip at the 4th. You want to think about the crotch or the seat at about 4.5. And then at the knees, you have your at line 6, at the bottom of the 6th head. 7 and 8, you're gonna get your ankles at the bottom of the 8th, and then the feet, you'll have like the remaining measurements that you have going on, right? Now in here you will have 2 heads, right? 2 heads, 2 head length for the thigh area, the upper part of the legs, and 2 heads for the lower parts of the legs, right? This gives you that extra length, and also having that longer neck as well stretches the form. So we're going to get into it here right now. So as we did, we're starting off with the head, and then you want to start blocking your shoulders to start creating your torso. All right. In this case, what you're thinking of is creating that hourglass shape, right? Now we get the hourglass shape because we have the measurement of the shoulders, the waist, and the hip. The shoulders and the hip should feel about the same width to give you that hourglass figure, as you can see here, right? So this would lock in your torso, and from there you connect your neck for your shoulders to your shoulders and your head. And then we're going to go down the length of the body. So we want to think about the crotch area, right? So you have the hip, widest part of the body, right? Lines up with the shoulders. And now you want to get the thigh in, the upper leg areas drawn in. And then you want to get the lower parts of the leg, right? 7 and 8. Now you'll notice that I'm using very simple shapes because these would help you, especially for folks who drawing is not like your strongest suit. This will help you get like a better sense of structure and form, right? So you could use like these basic shapes, these basic rectangular shapes, and I'll go into a little more detail when we wrap this up after, just to help you see where all of this is going, right? So once we get to the end, I've used the circles for the indicate the knee area. I'll use the circles to indicate the ankle area, and we'll finish off by drawing in our feet location like this, right? All simple shapes that we will then round off after, right? Now if you're drawing this traditionally, you would do this like an underdrawing where you draw very lightly, right? And then you could come back over with like heavier and heavier lines as you get to like the finish point. But I'll use layers and you'll see how this goes on. Now for the arms, I'm using the circles that should cut like halfway and halfway out here with this torso area. Now if you notice, the elbows is matching up with the waistline, right? So the elbow is matching up with the waistline, and you want to get these hands slightly off of the body. So if you're doing a garment with a little more volume, right, the hands are not something that will obstruct the view, right? Because you want to, again, you want to display your illustrations, your designs. The hands should never reach as low as the knees, right? That will be too long. They should finish off, the arms at the length of it should finish off somewhere around the middle of the thigh area, right? And I'll go into a little more detail with considerations for drawing hands. So again, cylindrical shapes and away from the body a bit, right? And you just want to make sure that it doesn't get too long, right? In this case, this hand might be a little bit long, so I'm just going to shorten it. Right, this feels a little bit better, right? That length should be fine, right? And this would lock in our basic form. Other things you want to think about: the bust area should fall somewhere around the second head, or maybe like 2 1/4, somewhere around here, right? To think about like a bust area. Good. So now that we have that, we're going to soften these lines a little bit. So I'm just going to make this a little bit lighter, and we're going to come back on top. We're going to come back on top with like the darker lines. Now, let me just get rid of this. Right, we're going to come back on top now with our darker lines. And here you're going to put in the head. Right, so I'm softening up all the harder points that would have occurred beforehand. Right, so you want to soften up those lines there. Right, especially select the sharp movement here. You want to make that nice and soft, and you get all these curves in for your drawing. So as I'm finishing up the figure, right, I'm gonna go into detail about the feet, and I'll show you that with like zoomed in a little bit so you can get like a better sense of what should be happening there. Right, so you have like your form, right? And this then would give you like your basic form that you could take and start drawing and working off of. Now, some things that you want to consider. Some things that you want to consider whilst you're working. Now remember, we used basic shapes, right, to lock in the form. Right, so like all these cylinders and that kind of stuff. So when you're thinking about like the arms, for example, it's usually like slightly tapered shapes that get us to these places, right? So from the ankle, you get like the slightly tapered length that works, and the same thing for the feet when you think about what is happening here, right? A little bit wider at the top, slightly tapered as you go in. Same thing for here, slightly tapered with a little curve on the outside part here, right, to give us that nice shape for the calf, right? And it's just like a simple shape that you could then start a block in and get better at doing. Now, when we're thinking about the feet, what is happening here is I started off with this, then the these. Now what you want to do is you're roughly cutting this in half, and this would give you your toe area, and then you're doing these guys 1 2 3 to get you the other toes. Now what that looks like when you 2 3, right, this will be going into the legs, right? So this then let me just go with like a finer point. So this then would give us our toe area, right? And it's just like a nice quick way for you to get into drawing the feet. Now the hands, right? So there are a couple ways you could approach the hands, but the first thing you want to start to think about, this is the wrist, this is the palm, and then you have the fingers. You want to think about the way the fingers bend. So you have like this, and then 1 2 3, right? 1 2 3. This might be a little long. One, two, three. All right. Now if I try it like a different way here. All right. One, two, three. Thumb, fingers, palm. All right. Wrist. Right, so different considerations for drawing like the figure and getting those things done together. All right, so I hope this is helpful. The next video, what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover this in the digital space with vector software, and all you're trying to do is to get like your basic figure down so you could start working on your designs and your garments on top of this. Right, so thanks a lot for looking at the video. Hope you enjoy, and see you in the next one.